All right, we're live.
Okay, let's stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Can someone lead the land acknowledgement?
As a way of respecting, honoring, and creating awareness about our past, we begin our village board meetings by acknowledging that New Paltz is on the ancestral land of the Munsee, Esopus, and Lenape people.
Great. And I think the only thing we're adding regarding this agenda is, we have the consent agenda and the reorg agenda, but in the business agenda, the only thing we are adding is Susan Stetson Cohen, the town's historian, was going to speak with us about the history of Black-owned properties in the village. So she's going to join us at approximately 7:30. Does anyone have any questions about that? And okay, I motion that we move the business agenda as amended.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I motion that we move the consent agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so we have some announcements to be made.
Yeah, I just wanted to quickly just share some information that I got from folks over in the city of Ithaca who did something pretty cool last week where they passed a resolution to forgive 3 months of rent. And it turns out, at first I thought it was like a really rapid response thing that requires, state legislative action or something like that. But after speaking with contacts in Ithaca, it seems like it's more of like a long-term project. And so we're going to kind of work together just to share more information with each other because the city of Ithaca has the same percentage of households that are renters. And when we compared notes about complaints that we've received during, these trying times, they seem to be the same notes. It was like, talking to a mirror with all the same complaints and stuff. So A, just wanted to share that we now have like that connection with, somebody outside of our region, but still in New York State. And B, I'm now being connected with their tenant union and other leaders who had worked on this very interesting workaround to create rent forgiveness as a potential tool for their mayor. So it's not like they're forgiving rent automatically. It's basically they're asking for the Department of Health to basically give their municipality that tool in their toolbox. Just wanted to basically share that I'm learning a lot and I'll have more on this in the coming weeks.
Thanks, Alex.
Okay. Any other announcements that we want to make? I mean, another announcement that we would make is that we've been working with downtown businesses to try to figure out a temporary solution that involves picnic tables that we've borrowed from the county fairgrounds. Folks at the county fairgrounds have been incredibly helpful providing the village with these picnic tables, and we've tried to figure out a way to make them available just for just to provide seating areas downtown. Okay, do we have any public comment?
Before we just get to that, KT, I don't know if we want to just publicly say that the regatta is canceled. Sorry, I know it's very sad because it's supposed to be this coming weekend.
Sorry, we did put it up on Facebook, or maybe we did or didn't, but yes, we didn't do an official announcement, but I guess we can do that right now, that it's not happening this year. I just wanted to add to what Tim said about the downtown restaurants. What did I want to add? I don't know. Lost my train of thought. I'll come back to it if I remember.
Okay, yeah, well, let's put an asterisk, like, we'll circle back at the end of the business agenda just to see if there's anything else we wanted to share about that picnic table idea. Okay, so we don't have a public hearing and we don't have any other public comment. I motion we move the consent agenda. Can I get a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, business agenda. We have number 1, climate items. Does anyone want to share an idea? Well, we can certainly come back to it. I bet you there might be some other things that we
I
have.
mean, I think you can see some of those priorities reflected in the commissions that we have and the from everything bicycle, bike and ped. I put emergency preparedness in the climate category because they're totally overlapping issues. Environmental Policy Board, Shade Tree Commission. So, I mean, it's a little different because it's our reorg agenda, right? Where's our business agenda? So I can look at that and think about that.
Yeah, this is you know,
Sewer-
an intent.
Water system upgrades are always climate smart. Lum sludge bid.
Right, and we had a tough water day today. We were
Oh, right. We should bring that up because I still have a little bit of brownish in my water here. It went away for a little while, but it came back. And we rarely have it up over here, so this was a rare event.
yeah, I have a little bit of brown water.
What? They've lived in a little pocket that the electricity doesn't go out and the water doesn't get brown. Popped that.
Yeah, I had a little bit of brown water earlier and actually drank a glass of it. It didn't taste entirely too funny. It seemed okay. But,
Yeah, I brushed my teeth with it. It was fine.
I actually keep drinking it.
yeah, I mean, it'd be better not to. And you know, fortunately, the repair was done this afternoon. So if anyone is still facing bits of brown water, they just have to flush it out.
Yeah, I did a lot of flushing, more than I would have wanted to. But we had it very, very brown here on Church Street.
Yeah. Okay, so then business agenda item number 2 is just related to the Environmental Facilities Corp grant award that we received. So this is just a document that discusses using Bernier and Larios for that grant award that we received regarding water mains. So I motion that we go ahead and engage Bernier and Larios on that project. All in favor?
Aye.
Hi.
And then our next item is the sign on regarding the NICOM letter. Does anyone want to share details on that?
So I had put this on here when I got the email from them, and then I went back to find it and I couldn't. I think all of you are on it. It definitely had to do with federal funding in relation to COVID for local municipalities. And I'm still not able to find the letter. So you guys don't want to sign on to it right now without being able to look at it. I totally get it.
No, but that's a letter from some time ago. I mean, I feel like we were early signers.
There was a recent email since the last meeting when that caused me to put this on there, which is why I'm frustrated that I can't find it because it wasn't that long ago.
Yeah. Okay, well,
Yeah, I just took a quick look in my email and I couldn't find it either.
Yeah. Oh, you know what? I do. All right. I am seeing it. I can. pop the
Well,
link.
I mean, it would be great if we could sign on, because I think if Donald Trump saw that the Village of New Paltz signed on, he'll probably release the federal funds. So
Well,
do this.
it will immediately convince the Senate Republicans to just pivot.
Yeah, I heard Mitch McConnell wondering what Alex Wojcik was thinking.
All right, let's sign on.
Here,
All right,
I'm
so-
gonna put the link right in here.
Thank you.
All right, now you should be able to look at it.
Should we quickly look at it? Yeah, I'm okay
Yeah.
not reading
Yeah.
this tonight.
I'm like almost done, and this is all
Yeah,
that we would sign on to and have pretty much said, maybe not using the exact same words, but we've said this,
Yeah.
so
I'm good with it.
we're signing.
So you would like to sign it?
Yeah.
Then we have to come up with a specific example. Should we just use $522,000 that we budgeted for 2021?
Wait, what?
Because they're looking for an example.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Insert specific
Yeah,
example.
yeah.
You know, which represents,
Well, you could just use your thing that you already wrote.
That's what I was thinking.
That's just your line item projection that you already did. I mean, you might want to look at it and see if you still, we could look at those and reassess and see if it's, well, I mean. it's
well,
not
I know I was just going to pull out the
information, but
I was just going to pull out parking revenue alone.
yeah, it says insert a summary of the specific revenue losses. It's plural, so. I don't know. I say send Mitch the detail.
Um, okay, so let's, I'm motioning that we go ahead and use their template and include specific detail from information that we've already shared. That's my motion. Does somebody want to second it?
Second.
Can
All in favor?
I?
Aye.
Okay, and then the next item is New York Forward. So Ariana just made sure that we had these documents regarding how businesses should reopen, you know, following a safety plan provided by Albany. And, you know, the Village of New Paltz will be referencing these same documents. So I don't think we need to take an action on this. Ari just wanted to make sure that this was shared publicly.
Thank you, Ari.
You're welcome. I mean, I guess I was thinking that you guys would vote on it, but I don't know that you actually need to. So if you don't want to, you know, see that, that's fine. I don't know if the town did. I tried to get more information from them, but I didn't get that detail.
Yeah,
I mean,
I think it's really important that we're recognizing that the documents and the guidance exists, and you know, we're officially recognizing that businesses should refer to these documents.
Okay, cool.
Okay, so the next item is we need to get folks to bid on removing sludge. You know, this is just, you know, part of our annual process from our treatment plants. So we're going to have a public process and find someone to remove the sludge from our water treatment plant. And the bids will be due July 7th next month. So I motion that we go ahead and invite folks to bid on this opportunity.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so the next item is just a document that we need to sign on to regarding the outdoor expansion of licensed premises in response to the COVID outbreak. So this is different though. Do we have, I thought there was also, I'm confused. I thought there was also some other document that we had to vote on as a board. Is this it? Your
I-
municipality may submit a municipal extension form.
This is if we needed to do this for that parking lot. I didn't think there was anything else that the village board needed to vote on. Will Frank sent a bunch of stuff over though.
Okay, well, I don't think this is everything then. Because I know the town is working on something. Neil and I spoke, because I was working with Lieutenant or Chief Lucchese and Corey yesterday about the timing of, you know, when businesses would close in the evenings, and we were talking about maximum midnight. And Neil called me earlier, and I relayed that to him because he wanted to make sure that they were on the same page with whatever they came up with.
Yeah, and this just looks like the guidance, not the form that we need to populate and then.
We might end up
It's
having
in
to,
there.
the form is in here, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's linked in, yeah, once you get there.
Okay, so it seems like
I mean, I have the summary from that Will sent us, an SLA summary of issues, but there's nothing else in here that need to be voted on either. I don't see any emails from Neil on this.
I can't remember, like there's some other village that Attorney Rick Golden worked with, and when we were going to use the paperwork that Rick created for that village. So I think that's what I was anticipating we would vote on tonight.
Can you
but
send that to me?
I don't have that at my fingertips. We just might have to have a special meeting.
I don't
this
think
is,
this isn't,
yeah,
yeah.
these are special times. We might just have to have a special meeting this week to button some things up. So let's just anticipate doing that, because you know all the stuff is being thrown at us fast and furiously.
Yeah, it's my
so
understanding it's like a packet basically that the municipality has to like sign off on, you know, like and prepare. And it doesn't have to be like the actual form, but it could be like a municipal attorney kind of putting together a package. So yeah, I'm expecting a couple of those.
I think it would be helpful to just take a step back for the public and say, put this in context for everybody, that basically the state is allowing more outdoor dining now because of COVID. We can't do indoor dining yet, restaurants, that is farther down the road. So basically the state is allowing communities to use spaces to put things like picnic tables in the post office parking lot. For the businesses that don't have outdoor dining. There are businesses that have outdoor dining and they can utilize that now as long as they could adhere to the guidance. And also, Tim and Corey in the business, in the building department are working with folks who, you know, don't have site plans that allow for this. The state is allowing for an expedited process to work with these types of business owners to work with the municipality. So there's going to be outdoor seating allowed where it's already been approved. There's going to be more outdoor seating in spaces like the post office parking lot, and also these individual small businesses that can work with the village to get that permission. And this is all about a phased re-entry, slowing of our social distancing, whereby we're at the point where we can do this. We can sit, you know, next to each other at tables that are far apart, and to level the playing field for our restaurants that don't have this type of space available to them. That's why, we're taking these actions.
Okay, does someone want to reach out to like Will and Rick and Corey and Neil? And it seems like there's something that we're supposed to be approving as a village, which I'm just not certain exactly. I mean, I've had this discussion many times. It seems like there's like different,
I feel like
scenarios.
I've seen the form you're talking about with my own eyes. I feel like I saw it at some point in the last week.
Right, because there's a couple of things going on here, right? There's like an SLA rule that allows a business to serve alcohol outside of their premises if that's not part of their regular liquor license. But then there's another piece regarding like local site plans and like our village allowing businesses to use their site plans differently than how they've been approved. So I think those are two pieces that we need to get more clear about. And what we did with the municipal lot that we leased from the Kempner Corp is completely different because, that we're just treating it like it's a park where, you definitely cannot consume alcohol in it, just like you can't consume alcohol in Hasbrook Park.
I was going to ask you to just say that out loud. Basically, open container law is still in place. So it's not that alcohol can be consumed publicly. And the ability to take out alcohol is still in place. And now, Alex, didn't Albany say they were going to leave that in place for 2 years? Or Tim, did you tell me that?
No, I definitely did not tell you that.
Okay, I thought somebody said that to me. So don't quote me on it, anyone. But right now, you can still do the to-go alcohol. And also, I think one of the questions that I saw today was about cleaning up. Tim, can you talk a little bit about the plan for who's in charge of keeping the it clean in these spaces?
Yeah, so it's really come together as a nice community effort where Teresa Thompson has led the effort to find volunteers from local businesses, especially the downtown restaurants. And the idea is that, they're going to be like half-hour shifts where folks will go through and just make sure that the area is being kept in like a neat and reasonable way. And then our public works are going to be taking away trash at least once a day. And Ariana has led the effort to try to engage, folks who would want to see composting handled correctly down there. So we have a few different things going on, and it's really just an all hands on deck with different volunteers trying to make it happen, trying to support the local businesses in this temporary way.
Thank you. And thank you to everyone who's done the heavy lifting on this the past week or so.
Okay, so let's just plan on figuring this out tomorrow, and then we might have to have a special meeting.
Yeah.
Okay, so then I'm going to move on to the next item. So I'm going to move the budget modifications.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And then I'm going to jump ahead here to move the resolution 5C regarding bills and claims. Does someone want to move, second my motion?
Second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
And then I'd like to move the motion regarding bills and claims 6N. All in favor? And then the two remaining items on this business agenda, we have the role of the New Paltz Police, or the village government's role and New Paltz Police. So let's just put a placeholder there for a moment. And then hopefully Susan Sesson-Cohen, the town historian, is going to join us on this Zoom call, as we chatted with her recently about all the work that she's been doing with various people for the last 20 years on historically Black owned property in New Paltz, going back hundreds of years. And we were taking a sharper look at properties on Mulberry and Broadhead, and you know, Bill was looking closely at some of the work that HHS has done. So, you know, we have some cool ideas percolating on this topic that we hope to you know, share publicly soon. But Susan was going to put things into context a little bit when she hopefully joins us momentarily. So should we go ahead and look at this reorg agenda and maybe move that while we're doing more of the administrative work right now? So one thing on number 3 on this reorg agenda. So we wanted to pause or table 3A and 3B while we just figure out what our financial picture looks like during the next couple of months. So we would like to move this reorg agenda as is, but table 3A and 3B possibly until July, you know, once we get a clearer picture.
Sure. I do just want to add one note for the Tenant Landlord Relations Council. You know, Robin has been so amazing, but really wants to step down once we find someone else who could be, you know, a neutral participant, because as you know, like there's 3 landlords and 3 tenants, and then there's somebody who is neither, and that's typically that's who Robin has been, and it's also served her well to chair in that position. So just wanted to use this as an opportunity to throw it out there. If anyone out there is neutral, aka not a landlord or a tenant, and wants to join and get involved, so Robin can eventually turn her attention over to other parts of her life, that would be amazing. But for now, she'll remain.
Tim, what about 3K? I think we're not doing 3K tonight either.
I'm looking. Yeah, right. The planning board chair spot, because John Oleski recently resigned from that position, so we're going to leave that open. And we've had some encouraging conversations regarding candidates, but yeah, we need to pause on that one and table that as well. Any other questions that we should be discussing?
I just wanted to mention, I talked to Michael Zeeler today, and we were thinking about, we started after Michael left, I think it was just during when Eve was chair, we had a couple meetings where we had the village board meet with the planning board. I think one of them, the topic was rec fee. So we talked about fees. I think maybe we did another one where we talked about MBR, and it also provided an opportunity for planning board members to just connect with the village board and report on experiences and maybe sticky things or things they thought they wanted to put on our radar. And I think that made for a healthy communication between the village board and the planning board. So Michael and I were thinking that maybe that could be the topic, is master plan, and what he and I have been thinking about that. And, you know, master plan is basically this huge umbrella topic, right? Like everything planning board could be connected to that. But Michael and I are proposing that idea of asking the planning board if they'd like to do a joint meeting with us on a special topic or which also provides time to just chat with them.
That's great. That would be a welcome conversation.
All right, I'll let him know, and then I'll talk to Alana and we'll try to figure out a date to put on the calendar.
Okay, so
One
it's-
more edit, sorry. The social media policy, the one that we passed, that is the updated one, is not the one that's linked in there. But I didn't realize that until like tonight.
Good catch. A lot of links.
Yeah,
You should
it's a
actually
lot.
just delete that one that's linked in there because it's also in the policy book, and I believe the one in the policy book, Alberta and I were just going through this today, actually. So social media policy, Facebook policy, filming policy, and the feral cat policy are all in the policy book, but the procurement policy and the cash management policy, they're also in the policy book, but they have to be adopted separately as well. So we should check, you should just double check the one in the policy book, but I believe that should be the up-to-date social media policy.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, because
Yeah,
that
no
was
problem.
November 6th, 2019.
So yeah, we can just make that edit and we're covered, right? Just change the adoption date.
And the link.
Right.
Well, I deleted the link out of the minutes.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, so did you guys also receive this email from John Oleski? It's his public comment to the village board for our 6:10 meeting. I mean, it basically says he's disappointed but not surprised the board's agenda this evening does not include any action to immediately protect the potential archaeological site at 6 Pencil Hill Road. And then he also is saying he's disappointed but not surprised to find out that these were empty gestures, you know, referring to like our interest in this topic, you know, which I find to be curious because we were just saying how we have the town historian supposed to be joining us momentarily to talk about these topics. And we've been...
So let's do that. So let's just do that.
Is Susan here?
Hey,
Oh,
Susan.
good. Awesome. Susan is here.
Thank you.
Susan, you're on
for coming.
mute. You're on mute right now.
Now I'm not.
Perfect. So, yeah, we've had some discussion within our community about, you know, different properties that have been historically Black owned. And, you know, you've been working on this topic, you know, as we've discussed in the past for decades, but maybe just give us a summary on, you know, taking a closer look and what you think next steps would be. You know, we shared with you a brainstormed idea. It's a little too early to share more details about an exciting opportunity that we have for one of the properties. But you know, just give us a little background on what we've been looking at and the work that you've been doing for decades.
Well, I think the first thing that's really important is to note that our town has been involved in digging up our past, whether it's painful or not. And it started with the 1799 manumission ledger, which the town owns. It's being housed at historic Huguenot Street, but it's the ledger from 1799 where any woman that gave birth, any woman that was enslaved that gave birth to a child, the baby had to be registered in the town's book. They wanted to keep track of the ages of these children because there was going to be a certain age when they would be released from bondage. So we start, you know, before that, I think Huguenot Street has an incredible archive that documents so many events, people buying and selling of enslaved people, medical bills, clothing bills, et cetera, that deal with the enslaved people that lived in New Paltz. I've been working for probably more than 20 years doing research on Black history in New Paltz. And I have to say, AJ Williams Meyer has been an incredible resource person that I've worked with, and everything that I've put in print, I've had AJ look at. And those of you that don't know, he was chair of the Black Studies Department. He retired a couple of years ago, but someone I still stay in close contact. He did the introduction to the book that I co-authored called In Defiance, Runaways from Slavery in New York's Hudson Valley, which deals with runaway slaves, which we obviously had quite a few that left from New Paltz as well. As far as some of the issues that Mr. Oleski came up with, I think the issue about the Jacob Belting burial ground really has nothing to do with Black history as much as it's a private cemetery, which I think we talked about already, that you had to do what you had to do to deal with that cemetery. Yes, it is a Huguenot cemetery, but the other Huguenot burial ground has been integrated because several years ago, we were able to, when I was working at Huguenot Street, we were able to reinter a Black man that lived on the street. We dated it, I'm trying to think, it was either early 1800s or late 18th century. It was early, and the skull was found by the Deo House. So we actually, if you go by the burial ground on Huguenot Street, you can see there's a tombstone that's inscribed with the Sankofa symbol on it, which I was able to get a local stonecutter that lives right on Huguenot Street with funding that I was able to raise, and then Huguenot Street chipped in. So as far as the residences, like what we were talking about, like who lived where on the streets and how you would want to commemorate. I know a few years ago we commemorated one of my favorite people in New Paltz. I have like my list of historic favorite people, and Aunt Judy was one of them, Aunt Judy Jackson. And we have a plaque that's going to be commemorated as soon as we can commemorate again. That came off the old, it was on the fence of the old playground. So that was removed. I assume it's in your office, Tim, or?
Yeah, I actually took it because we're re-commemorating the Aunt Judy Jackson plaque. I actually took it off the old playground and it's in my office. So, you know, we had discussed plans on how to.
We had this Juneteenth, we had a Juneteenth thing that,
right.
that someone, I do have to say that I read carefully this piece that that you sent to me, and there were a lot of things that aren't accurate on it.
Okay.
So, all right.
Which piece is that?
Who wrote that? Let me look here on this computer. Wait, I'm seeing who wrote it. Tim, wait, here's Tim. Chuck from Bill?
Yeah, right. So that was just the concept that we're exploring.
Right, and the concept is wonderful. It's just there are things, the address is wrong too. It's not 5 Broadhead. Anne lived at 3 Broadhead.
Right, and I thought the point that you brought up when we spoke earlier about, you know, both Broadhead and Mulberry being interesting streets to take note of, especially because Aunt Judy Jackson was actually a Mulberry resident.
And then there's a whole, I just went through just before, I was going through who lived where. And I was looking at Levi Lefevre, Jacob Wynkoop, and Emma Franklin all lived 121 Church Street and around. So there was a small community on Church Street as well. So it kind of went Church Street, Broadhead, some people on Mulberry, and then it turned around on North Front. There's some people living there. I sent you a picture. Did you see that picture?
Yeah, I circulated that to our board.
Yeah, I got that from a woman that came to Huguenot Street years ago with a photograph telling me that she thought her great-great-grandparents were slaves in Huguenot Street. And I was able to bring her back to that. And I actually found where some people, some distant ancestors of hers were buried in the cemetery on Plains Road, the New Paltz Rural Cemetery. And she had that picture, which was a picture of Richard Oliver, who is Ann Oliver's husband, who he's the one, somebody, I guess, it says here that Jacob, Miss Jacob died of malaria, but it's really Richard Oliver that died of malaria on his way home. That's why Anne was a widow.
Right, on his way home from serving.
Right.
Go
See,
ahead.
to me, he was quite the guy,
Yeah.
Richard Oliver, and I think they got Jacob Weinkoop and Richard Oliver confused. So Richard Oliver was in the 20th, and I think John Weinkoop, was it John or Jacob? Because they're two brothers, they're a few years apart. They were never slaves. John and Jacob were not slaves. They might have been indentured, because after 1799, anyone that was born to, like what I was saying in the manumission book, they were called indentures, and they had to serve for different amounts of time. Like if somebody was born in 1822, before slavery was officially ended, they would still have to serve 21 more years to their mother's enslaver. So it depends on someone when they were born. And the dates we have for the Weinkoop brothers, they were never slaves, but they could have been indentured, which would have been the same thing as slavery. Richard Oliver, I think I was able to bring him back. He's from Marbletown originally. And then Anne built that house and raised her children there. Marguerite is the one that stayed on, and she marries a freer. Hence you see Augustus and all the freers that lived in that house on 3 Broadhead. So, but there was also another community on Pencil Hill right by the church there. And when you look at, they also lived on Plains Road. They called it Rural Avenue, but Plains Road. And I'm thinking that those were the houses that were right, you know, when it kind of forks Pencil Hill and Water Street, like right there, were those houses, because it probably was right on the railroad and probably was cheaper to buy right there. You know, they were less expensive. And that's where I think Charles Moody and Fulton Cox, I think they lived around that area too, who Richard Thomas, who were contraband from the Civil War. So they came here and they came up with some of the Civil War soldiers. They just followed them home here and stayed here.
And tell us a little bit more about the church that was up on Pencil Hill. I think it's actually probably part of the parcel where Ariana, who lives there now at 2 Pencil Hill, you know, it seems like that where her house is, and then the house next door.
It's that big giant, there's a big giant house there. It looks like it's kind of got 3 parts to it almost. I think that's 1 Pencil Hill. And that supposedly is the spot where the church was, and you know, AME Zion Church. Some people confuse it with the Methodist Church, but it's the AME Zion. So that was on Pencil Hill, and there was a community around that church. I found something about one of the ministers. I think I found the minister from 1940 that was living right near there. So one of the projects I'm working on right now is to create an online exhibit that's, I'm not sure the title yet, but the gist is going to be like the disappearing Black community in New Paltz. Because again, you look at 1850, I think there's like 175 people of color here. And then except for, you know, I've been looking at 1940, except for the people that were here with Father Divine, there's like 5 Black families here. So we really got thinner and thinner and thinner. Where did they all go? That's what I'm going to try and figure out, where they went, why they went. And I think we know some of the answers to that.
Interesting. So what you were mentioning, the Methodist Church, is that the church on that's now the synagogue on Church Street?
That was the ME Church, yeah.
The ME Church, right?
That's why it was called Church Street.
Sure. Which is now the synagogue.
Right. They took the steeple down. They took a lot of the things down, so it looks more like a synagogue now. But
right, but those are 2 totally different structures.
Absolutely, 2 different buildings. Sometimes
2 different,
they get confused, but they're definitely 2 different things. So, you know, we know that there were several fires at the AME Zion Church, and I have to say that I had an intern this semester who ended up, he was in the National Guard and ended up down in the city, a young African-American student. And he was guarding different COVID places in New York City. So he didn't get to finish his project, but he was working on the AME Zion Church, and we were trying to find information about it. And it's like, it's bizarre because we've been trying for like 20 years. Carol Johnson and I had been trying to find out more about the church, and those records are kept somewhere. And we have tried everywhere to get more information about the church. But there were several fires there, and it just seemed like the last few fires, it just, they demolished the building after that. So I know there was nothing left of the building. Could that other building could been put on the foundation? Possibly, but we don't really know. And unless you like dug under the house, you wouldn't know. But I think, you know, again, what we were talking about, like the places to me that when I look at this town that are really important, one would be where the church was, the AME Zion Church was. The second would be the John Hasbrook or John Murphy, because he changed his name when he didn't want that Hasbrook name anymore, who lived in the house that Ellen James used to own on Huguenot Street. That's a really important place. And then looking again at, you know, something that might commemorate the community that was here, maybe with a plaque, or like some of the ideas that you were thinking about would be incredible. You know, we have a New Paltz Historical Society. We meet, luckily, you know, the town has been great. We have we just use town hall for our meetings. But, you know, we always dream one day about having a place that, you know, we could have meetings at or something. And we have had, you know, several speakers, and I've spoken many times about Black history. You know, again, it's something I've been doing for a long time. I love to get some other people involved, especially people of color in our community that would love to work with me on some of the projects I'm working on. But there aren't a lot of Black descendants of enslaved people that live in our community anymore. There were some Beviers for a while, but I think they're in Poughkeepsie now. They've come to, when I was doing genealogy at Huguenot Street, they did come there and try to find out more about their family. But you know, I'm wondering if you have any questions that I might be able to answer.
Anyone from the board have questions? Ariana, did you have a question?
I didn't. I had unclicked when you talked about Pencil Hill. That's why I unmuted.
That was a great summary of a lot of stuff, Susan. Appreciate that. And I hope it's just the beginning of talking more about our Black history and our community. I know to date, like if anybody asked me, I would say that you're the person that I know the most from. So when these issues came up, of course, your name immediately came to my head. And I'm really glad that you brought up AJ. I'd love to hear, you know, AJ's thoughts on all of this.
He actually, Jim, you know, Oleski contacted AJ, and AJ has some, in his family, there's some health issues that he's dealing with. So he referred him to me. So
Okay.
I got a very long phone call from Mr. Oleski, very long phone call.
Okay.
So,
Okay. Yeah, I mean, yeah.
But I will be talking to AJ this week. So
Okay, great. And also I know Josephine at Historic Huguenot Street, she's doing and has done a lot of related work. So maybe Tim, we could bring her on as well sometime to talk about what she has going on.
And
one
just,
of the things,
Mhm.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I always refer people. I did an exhibit several years ago that I redid in Omeka. It's just called The Missing Chapter on HRVH. And it's got it's got like 140 local documents and some stories about local people and just the history kind of enslavement and a little after in our community. So it's a good resource thing for everyone to look at.
Great, awesome.
Yeah, we've had some very encouraging conversations just recently with Josephine Bloodgood from HHS and Tom Olson from the Village's Historic Preservation Commission. But I feel like, these are just recent conversations, like folks like Josephine and yourself have been doing this work for years and years and years. So I think all we're trying to do is to continue your ongoing effort, to support your ongoing efforts.
Yeah, and as I said, whatever I could do to help, because I think it's going to cross with my new exhibit anyway. Like what you're thinking about is what I'm working on right now. Like I'm looking at 1940s quite a bit, and then, as I said, going backwards from there. I'm probably going to stop. Like, I'm not going to get up to current. I'm just going to kind of stop around 1940 and then go backwards from there. So I'll see how far I get, because there's a lot of census information. And then there's stories, clippings from the newspapers. Newspapers were great. Their gossip columns were wonderful. I don't have access to a lot of them because they're in the library. So, but people wrote about everything. So,
Tim, I don't want to lose this one thought about the historic commission. I know you, could you just talk a little bit about your conversations with Tom about this whole issue of, recognition, have Black properties not been recognized in the way that Black historic properties not been recognized in the way that they should be? What's happening over there?
Yeah, I feel like I want to pull up the most recent email that I have from Tom on this topic, which addresses exactly what you just described. Let me see if I can quickly grab this. Because Tom was saying that they anticipate discussing the Wing Coop houses at their upcoming June 15th meeting, and are excited to participate in any sort of collaborations. And they were, citing Josephine as the expert on the Wing Coop houses in particular. I'll just read what he said. He says, "One step I would like us to consider is to use her findings to correct misinformation now circulating about the houses and put a correct account out to the public by various means. I would also like to correct what appears to be some misunderstanding about the power and purview of the HPC. One other point he intends to raise at an upcoming meeting is that the HPC protect, more systematic HPC protections in the past, the houses now lost might have been saved, and others saved from extensive alterations that have been subjected to over the years. The attention to the Wing Coop should remind us of why we need to strive to protect our historic resources in the first place." So I feel like some of this too is also like intentionally being mixed up with our ideas for an architectural review board, just to help community members. And I think I provided Susan with the example today, and this is the way we've always looked at it. It's almost like free consulting. Like if you wanted to replace all the windows in your house, and your house was of a certain design, in parallel to going before a planning board, if that was required, the likes of an architectural review board could say, "Hey, have you considered, this style of window?" Not because it will cost more, but just because it will be more architecturally appropriate. When we've relayed, this to, different people about the intention of this proposed law that the HPC members could help with, developers and homeowners are like, "Wow, that seems fantastic. I wish I had that when I did my project." And a lot of this really came out of the giant steel and concrete structure that was erected on Main Street, down the way from the bistro, that many people in our community have struggled with. Like, could that developer have built something that just felt a little bit more in tune with the neighboring buildings? That's the idea, is just have some more of a review process, more of a process where folks are looking at things through an architectural lens. It's not about using historic with a capital H to limit things and make everything historic, or make everything like Huguenot Street. That's completely not the objective. It's really just to help our community make solid decisions and support property owners so that they, can continue to feel excited and proud about the stuff that they own.
That was a lot of information about the impetus for that whole initiative. And I think that we should start that next meeting, that next workshop with, what is the problem statement that's driving this initiative so that we can understand the problem that we're trying to solve. And you articulated it. We don't need to have the conversation now. You and I have different takes on that. And let's just talk about like what's driving that and continue to say that this is a very slow moving process because we know there's lots of community engagement that needs to occur during this process. And it was like the one thing that we were like, well, let's just workshop this when we were in the middle of, all COVID all the time, just to, maintain a sort of sense of normalcy and not just shove everything to the side. So we did that workshop a couple months ago and scheduled the next one. And
we did 2 workshops.
I've been pretty forthright that I've struggled with, the why and the how of this. And it's been a good conversation by all parties involved. Like that's what we can do as neighbors in a small town is get together and hash this stuff out. That's how we roll.
Yeah, and I feel like the only way we'll figure out how to implement an architectural review process is by having numerous conversations on that topic. Throwing around good ideas, bad ideas. I mean, I think that's how you refine, how this could work.
Yeah, we said that from the beginning too, just that we thought, oh, now might be a good time to start the very long conversation, just to echo what KT was saying too, and knowing that we're going to have to be on Zoom for an undetermined amount of time, and then hopefully once we hammer out some great points moving forward, and then we can present it and have even more community feedback and having people attend meetings if we ever get to that day again, which hopefully we will. But yeah, just how really punctuating how this was just, the start of many, 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 many conversations and lots of community involvement. That was always the goal.
Right. And this will all hopefully be done in parallel with an effort to do a better job of recognizing historically Black-owned properties, and shining a light on that history too, and then leaning on the likes of Susan and others who have been looking at these topics for years. So it's like a few different concepts here that are being pursued in parallel. But Alex, I feel like we need to hear from you too.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly just had a question for Susan, just about Aunt Judy Jackson. Just where can we find more information to share? Just because I share your interest and admiration and love of her. And, I've been thinking just as we were going through all of this, as a community, it's been kind of a bummer that her plaque, hasn't been up. Not that anyone can be at the playground anyway, but just anything we could do to virtually commemorate her in the meantime would be really cool, actually, especially with Juneteenth coming up and other.
Well, we could do, there's not a lot that, I think I've dug up most of what you can find on her. But I gave a little talk when we did the first commemoration. I'm trying to remember. But that photograph of her is so powerful because you could see it. And there's that one quote about, they say something like, well, when she got the power. And you just see this woman, like she had the power, and I think it was like a religious kind of spiritual sense that she had the power. But she's so respected in this town. They called her Aunt Judy. Everybody called her Aunt Judy. And Ralph Lefevre's book, The History of New Paltz, he writes all these things about her, you know, when she was a slave on by Libertyville Road where the fairgrounds are, that, you know, there's stories that she told that she remembered about Native people being out there. And then she was sold, you know, and I think I told people, I think one of the, how I met Aunt Judy was that I was at a friend of mine, a dear friend of mine's house, John Jacobs, who died maybe 5-6 years ago at like 97 or something. And John and Katya, his wife, took out their box of photographs, and he had one, and he pulled this out and he said, Aunt Judy, and on the back of it said, given to his great aunt and uncle or great great aunt as a wedding gift. She was their wedding gift. She was Judy Lefevre before she was Judy Jackson. She was enslaved to the Lefevre family. But her story is an incredible story. So I'm happy to tell what I know about her at one time, but I'm glad that you feel that same. Yeah, she was a powerful lady.
Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, I think I might look back at old meeting footage, because I remember you gave like such a powerful presentation on her that, you know, when I was in Ariana's position, typing up the minutes, that really stuck with me all these years. So thank you for that.
Oh,
Yeah, we discussed this in a warm village board meeting, but when we did the commemoration out at Hasbrook and we, you know, were putting the plaque on the old playground, I remember it being, you know, February during Black History Month, and it was an incredibly cold day. We were all out
the
there.
wind was whipping, and we were in the little gazebo, and Jeff was there. Jeff Miller, the Ulster County historian, came out, and we were like, wow, you came out, because it was so cold. But anytime, you know, if you're, you know, I give talks, and anytime I may be giving some talks, and if I do it virtually, anyone that wants to listen, you know, give you a little more information about the history of slavery in our community, I'm happy to do that anytime.
Thank you.
Good, we'll talk soon.
Okay, so.
All right, thanks, Susan. Thanks
Okay,
for
I'm gonna
jumping.
run to environmental board.
Perfect.
Now. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Okay.
Susan. And
Thank
thank you
you.
for doing that as well.
Okay, bye-bye now.
Bye.
Do we need anything more on this topic, or should we return to the review of our reorg agenda? I guess, you know, I would summarize our intention is that, you know, Bill was investigating an exciting opportunity to, you know, move this topic forward, and we got some good preliminary feedback. So our fingers are crossed. And we'll share more when we have more to share. Okay, so let's jump back to our reorg agenda. Any other changes before I motion to move the agenda as amended?
The only thing that I would add is I have a Shade Tree Commission conflict on Thursdays. So Bill was going to help out and stand in until we sort out. I may be interested in taking his place, an HPC. But we're gonna. What are we doing, Bill? We're trying it out. Bill's gonna stand in for me next week, and then is that okay for us to give a more clearer picture of that in the coming weeks?
Yeah, I suggested that I'll take the meetings in Shade Tree for a bit. Monday nights are tough for me. They're usually fire department trainings. And though we're not doing trainings at the moment, we will resume them soon. So perhaps I'll switch with Michelle at some point during the year.
So do you want to make that adjustment on this reorg, or do you want to handle it?
Not just yet. We'll just inform the board when that takes place.
Okay. Okay, so anything else before we move this reorg agenda, or?
Just thank you to everybody that's serving and giving volunteer and other contributions to our village. As you can see from this agenda, we have an array of different boards and commissions, and it just takes a lot of energy and a lot of actual, showing up at meetings and rolling up your sleeves and doing work. And I just want to take a moment to thank our amazing community that shows up.
Yeah, we have some awesome volunteers on all of these boards.
Didn't see that coming, Tim. It's the moment of the week. Do you know what I'm talking about? It's my emo moment.
Oh, right.
It's usually during the Thursday call. It snuck up on Wednesday night.
I'm not surprised.
I mean, our community is that awesome, and just like looking at this list of all these amazing volunteers and projects that are in process is like sometimes overwhelming.
All right, I motion to move the reorg agenda as amended.
Second.
All in favor?
Hi.
Okay, so going back to our discussion on what is the village board's role regarding the New Paltz Police Department. Does someone want to start off that conversation?
So we passed in a resolution, a joint resolution with the town last week with respect to, a memorializing resolution condemning the murder of George Floyd, and our commitment as a community to be anti-racist. And as we were writing our whereases about, what the town role would be, and the village's role would be, and where do they overlap, and whose, purview is what, I think it catalyzed a conversation that we should have with our community, so our community knows who their point people for police accountability are in a legal sense, and then how we want to talk about our role in that, because the police are the purview of the town. They control the purse strings, and they are the police commission. But we also want to commit to the efforts to supporting police accountability. I think I can say for all of us, right? And so, we want to have clarity amongst ourselves and to communicate to our community so they understand the roles of the different actors. I think that many communities are having, maybe not, this wrinkle of, village town thing, but conversations about, what does your police budget look like? What use of force policies are in place? What is the police commission or some version of a citizens advisory board look like? These are conversations that municipalities are having across the country. So I think that we should be talking a lot about this right now and clear on our intentions and our roles as we see them.
Yeah, and I think we're relatively fortunate in New Paltz in that, I think many of us were very encouraged by our new police chief's note to our community after the George Floyd murder. These are very challenging times, and I feel like many of us might, have a hard time, recognizing that we have all been affected by systemic racism, and we're a product of this world that we were raised in, and that's absolutely no excuse, and we need to do better, and we need to try to figure out ways to erase the injustices that systemic racism creates. It's gone on for entirely too long, and it's just disheartening and unfair, and talk about like emo. It's like it chokes you up when you think about what what members, Black members of our community and area communities have had to endure because of our checkered history. And I don't think there's really a roadmap on exactly how we get there, but I feel like KT has said this many times, and other friends who've studied this concept, like, we don't know what the roadmap is, but we know we need to keep talking about it. That's probably our best route at this point, because ignoring it or just saying like, I'm not racist, I'm not an overt bigot. It's not about being overtly bigoted. It's not about being a white supremacist, wearing KK stuff. It's about the privilege that we have. It's about the mistakes we've unknowingly made, the unfair situations we may have been able to take advantage of, where someone else gets hurt in the during those episodes. And we need to do better, and we need to keep having these hard conversations.
Definitely. So it was interesting when we worked on the joint resolution last week. I do want to share that I'm sure you all know, but yesterday, both the Senate and Assembly did pass the bill to repeal 50A, and Governor Cuomo has committed to signing it. I believe it's been sent up to him, or maybe not yet, but it's something that he's vocally committed to signing, and there's a slew of other bills addressing police brutality and police accountability that are going through both chambers in Albany this week, and some of them Cuomo sounds like he's about signing. Some I'll believe it when I see it, but just want to basically thank you guys for really moving on that resolution. I think it was important to throw our support behind those actions, because those are real actions that are now on the books, and will actually change the way things are here in New York, and make it possible for conversations about divesting from police departments, like, even possible. That's not something that would have been a conversation that could have been on the table effectively with 50A in place, with our and every other municipality's use of that 50A as a reason to not allow citizen advisory boards to have access to records and stuff. So that was a really major step. I'm really excited about that. Thank you. So it's really interesting to so we have no role, with the New Paltz Police Department. How is it even the funding work? Does anybody even know? Just because I was told by former police citizen advisory commission people that they were always told it was 25%, 75% funded. And I'm just where does that even come from? I don't see it.
Wait, what does that mean? 25, 75?
Tim, so can you just go over what A fund, B fund is, and elaborate on police fund and that A fund, B fund?
Well, as we're all town taxpayers, whether we live in the village or the town outside the village. So when we pay our town property tax bills, that money ends up in the town's A fund, and the town's A fund is used for town-wide expenses, including the police, because we only have one police department to serve the entire town of New Paltz, which includes the village. And probably years ago, there were two police departments, a town police department and a village police department. Some communities still have inefficient systems like that. But so we pay for the town police department as village residents, but as a village board, I always think of it in that the town board is directly responsible for the police department, and the village board is directly responsible for the fire department. that's often how I think of the two different things.
Right. So I was right when I told that former commissioner that I think they were misinformed.
So how can we, because Alex, not Alex, everybody, we're all about, opening up community conversations. I think like the two forums we had when we were transitioning out of pause into phase one were really good. I think like, if the town doesn't do it, like somebody's going to organize some kind of online forum that just kind of goes through, like if I was organizing, getting the word out and starting this conversation with our community, I would do something like an event like that, that just sort of went through what's the status quo, the stuff we just talked about, like who holds the purse strings, why is the town board police commissioners as like, why is that model? We've gone through so many different iterations of what a police commission should look like in this community. It just sort of is emblematic of what I would like to see the state do right now, is to, put some model laws forth on police commissions that could then be, customized for local conditions, because inventing this whole wheel the history shows it's been a rough, complicated, do it one way, figure out it's the wrong way, go do another way, and I think our community right now, given, what the ask is, from the streets is, tell us what the police do and how we can understand what's happening there better. And I think, it's better to be the one telling and providing that information than for it coming from elsewhere. So
Yeah, how do we get this conversation going?
I think we just, we propose to the town that this is a thing that we do. And
Yeah,
I don't need to even be on the Zoom, or maybe, I want to, but my point is, it's not about any of us individually. It's that, I want to see this community conversation happen, this public information campaign happen. And maybe I don't have any formal or legal authority to do so, but I want to sit up here, as deputy mayor and say that this is, I think, a thing our community needs right now.
yeah, I would agree.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Michelle, sorry.
Yeah, to that, I'm sorry, I was having a hard time following because of my internet was wacky. And I'm losing my train of thought, and I'm hoping I'm getting it back. What we said earlier was, we're grateful we have a police chief who puts out statements of solidarity, but I think we need something secure, because we don't know, like, these positions are not infinite. So I think it's important to have like we talked about, our great volunteers, to have volunteers to be part of a advisory committee, which I've been trying to understand what happened. And I just will be honest, I don't really know. And so that's something that's, important to me as a community member, and also have what I've been hearing from other people within the community, to know exactly what the police commission job is, and what happened to the advisory committee, and will it be reinstated, and exactly what's going on there, and just so we can all together understand moving forward.
Yeah, I think we definitely need, just the whole community needs to kind of clarify all those issues, for there to be the kind of trust that is needed for things to be good. Yeah, I really want that conversation to happen, because I'm sure you're all getting lots of questions. from people like all over the place as well. And I'm just like, I don't have the answers, but I'll try to get them for you, even though, I don't have any jurisdiction. I do have this role, that has like a microphone.
Yeah, I feel encouraged that we can have this kind of conversation, even like a broader conversation without an official agenda. I would love to see something like that. And I believe that Chief Lucchese, said something along those lines when he said that he wants to listen, and and I really believe he's uniquely good at listening. And as elected officials, like, we deal with this all the time, where I regularly think I understand what might be going on, but when different people say, no, this has been my experience with that, I'm like, huh, really? Like, I didn't fully understand that until you just explained it to me, or what it felt like for you to go through that experience. And I like I was saying before about there's no roadmap or no blueprint, and I think the roadmap or blueprint is just creating spaces for people to express what they've witnessed, and then trying to identify like ways to handle situations better if they were not handled in a way that or if they were handled in a way that made someone feel uncomfortable.
I want to make sure to say out loud that when I was writing the whereas for that resolution about how there's empirically proven evidence, that if you have certain use of force policies, that your likelihood of police violence is reduced. Because in my campus at Benson, we had a speaker come last year who talked about, the disproportionality in police violence, and, that while Blacks are 13% of the population, they're about 1 in 4 people killed by police. There's also a robust, academic and policy realm folks that have done a lot of research to show that there is a punch list of use of force policies that you can actually really shift your culture. The more of you have, that the less likelihood. When I was writing the whereas, I said to Chief Lucchese, I said, here's this, punch list of things that, and I've even seen like the memes on social media now that are like, get your police to adopt these policies. And we've actually, and it was on the police website. You can, I think it's the Defense Action Policy or something, right there on the homepage. And you can see that a lot of these policies we already have enacted. And like, I didn't know that until I started writing this resolution. And I think people in our community want to know stuff like that. And they want to know what we're doing already and how we can improve. And I think it's important to cover what we've done already. And our department has intentionally increased representation in terms of, making another, Black population to general population. It is representative on our police force, at least in terms of people of color, not gender. That's why I put that. And also, they have had implicit bias trainings, and we have a police chief who intentionally has named these issues and taken ownership of being a leader on our community that's going to listen. I just want to keep daylight in the hell out of as much information about this, just so yeah.
Well, let's go ahead and see if we could bounce this idea off of the police chief and our colleagues on the town board about having, similar to, what we did with the opening after COVID info session that you mentioned earlier. Like, let's have like an informal conversation. We can invite people to send anonymous questions or relay experiences that they've had anonymously beforehand. We'll provide some lead time and encourage people to submit questions, and just have a long, thoughtful conversation, and then maybe do that a few times. I feel like getting feedback from the community and saying, this has been my experience, maybe this is what you guys could consider. I think that might be a good path forward.
I think it would be helpful to just have a few slides on the front end about structure and format, with respect to budget and, what percent of the budget is it? I keep getting asked that question. And I actually have some old analysis that I looked at that years ago and also compared us to other SUNY communities, because that's our unique category. Those are our comparison places, but they're not all exactly like us. I think we do need a little bit police 101, a slide or 2 or 3, just to go over the basics.
And that to kick off the conversation. Agreed.
Yeah.
That's actually one of the other things I've been working with my pals in City of Ithaca on, is like just comparing notes on this issue too. Just because it's interesting.
Yeah, I'm always loving what Ithaca does, so steal away.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I'll also report back on what I find out from Ithaca. Yeah, so we should definitely get that going. Can I just throw out another thought for us to think about, to like in terms of how the village board, like what we do have power over, is we do have power over our own village laws that build in, additional policing, such as our unique pedestrian open container law, which is, additional, and it's not in other SUNY communities and stuff. And that does require additional, like it writes into the law, like policing in a certain way, and looking at stuff like that. Like, in general, I've always been interested in looking at blue laws statewide, those old ones that say silly things like, you can't have 6 women in a house without it being a coven, or stuff like that, and changing them into green laws. And that's something friends of mine and I have been working on for almost 2 decades, and clearly haven't done much. So just something to think about, like look at our E-code and see if there are any other places where there's, use of police for enforcement where it might not really be necessary. Just like start looking at that, because that is the only thing we have control over.
That's interesting, like trying to take inventory of, so I don't want to get into a whole big discussion of what defund the police is, but because I think it means different things to different people, which is part of the problem, but maybe not. But basically what you're talking about is doing a needs assessment of the police, the things that we're using a hammer for when perhaps that's not the right intervention. So a lot of the defund police conversations are not like, let's not have any more cops. It's more, let's build up, the things that we've dumped on cops and give it back to the folks that, that's their thing, like social workers and psychiatrists and drug counselors, et cetera.
Yeah, or even, one thing that came up in a great conversation before everything got shut down, when I met with Students for a Sensible Drug Policy on campus, it totally just blew my mind and made me feel so old, because I was like, oh, when I was, an undergrad, like there were all these like free rides, like, so you never had to like walk with, like your corked wine in your backpack, through town and get into all sorts of chaos, when you leave the bar. There is the station wagons like around, and you go up to the bartender and be like, yo, I need a ride. And like, you got a free ride up to campus. And so that's like how I managed to get through without any open container things, like I put my backpack away, and stuff, little things like that. Like it just blew my mind how like those kinds of resources just, are not part of the reality for a current generation of students and other young people who stay up late. So really thinking about that. So I started kind of looking through our e-code and, how you can do like search for terms and stuff, and just start looking for police. And I'd be willing to start like a document if you'd be interested in, taking that inventory, because I think that would be the most action that we could take in addition to helping mediate, just because, we're good at talking to people.
Hey, and anyone out there listening, feel free to data mine our code to contribute ideas in this vein, because it's not a small task. But if you're motivated by an experience or something, yeah, basically, I guess, just experience, personal, or, maybe that's a place to start.
Bill, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to add that maybe we could be helpful with the town and our police department in communicating what's being done and what they do. Oftentimes, all at least that I receive are press releases on arrests at times and a couple of community things that are done during the year, but I don't know if everyone in our community is aware exactly what our police department does. And I'm sure that's true of other communities as well. And I just think better relations with the community is what's needed in an ongoing way. Now that we have a new chief, maybe we'll go in that direction to better communicate to our constituents.
And very much on that topic, I would like to say that we should have announced in announcements that there is a Narcan training tomorrow night. And let's see, the Zoom event. Ariana, can we put that in the resource doc and on social media? The announcement of the Narcan training. It's a collaboration of the town police and campus police and a bunch of different organizations. The logos are very small. But that's tomorrow night at 6:30. It's a virtual Narcan training. And then they'll have the kits in pickup locations. So, yeah, I don't know what exactly you said, Bill, that triggered my memory of that, but I'm glad that it did, because I wanted to announce that and forgot.
Thanks for that. And it's simply letting the public know these are the types of things that our police department, our police officers do. I mean, during this COVID crisis, they've been very helpful in terms of distributing masks, signage around town, and been very engaged and active in helping us communicate to the public, appearing on the rail trails and our local outdoor activity areas. So there are other things I think that we need to communicate as well. Once again, communicate.
Yeah, I would just echo that the police participation on our emergency, COVID team is 100% collaborative, and we've been of the same mind of, the tone, the approach, how are we going to handle figuring out what the hell the state is telling us and people they can and can't do. And it's been amazing. It's not been that stereotypical, oh, we want to do this and they want to do that. It's like really been, and that way also for rescue and fire and campus and Woodland Pond and all our partners.
Yeah, a lot of
I want
hard
to
work.
pretend it's rosy and we agree 100% on everything, but we definitely are super collaborative and great team, I think.
Yeah, a lot of hard work's being done behind the scenes that I don't think people are aware of. And that's something that I think needs to be done. In addition to the other things we've been discussing.
All right, so let's go ahead and see about trying to work with our
So,
colleagues and police chief and see about organizing something formally.
so you're gonna reach out to Rob and Neil, Tim?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right. I do not believe there's anything else that we need to take care of this evening, so I motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in
Aye.
favor?
Aye,
Bye, everyone.
bye. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.